Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine you are securing an enterprise-grade digital workspace, right? You've got an uninterruptible dual-power setup, pristine line-of-sight 5G internet, and, like, enough square footage for a proper home office.
This sounds expensive.
Right. But now imagine paying roughly $35 a month for all of it. And your front yard, instead of a concrete alleyway or a busy street, is a massive, pristine Indian river.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's the dream.
It really is. So today we are digging into a stack of sources. Specifically, it's a series of really highly detailed AI-assisted planning notes. And they map out a relocation to a place called Arikirevula.
Which is a village perched right on the banks of the Godavari River in Andhra Pradesh.
Yeah, exactly. And our mission for this deep dive is to figure out how a quest for a cheap, scenic rental, somehow turns into an absolute masterclass in building a community-driven, resilient digital lifestyle.
It really is a fascinating blueprint to read through. I mean, just the level of detail. What we're dissecting here isn't just a generic guide to finding affordable real estate.
No, definitely not.
It functions as a very precise case study in what economists refer to as geo-arbitrage.
Right, and for anyone listening who might be unfamiliar with that, geo-arbitrage is basically the practice of relocating to an area with a drastically lower cost of living, but you keep a high-income, usually digital-first career.
Exactly. But what makes this specific set of notes so compelling is, well, how it completely refuses to compromise. It manages to balance rural agrarian economics with a completely enterprise-grade technological backbone.
And that is exactly why we're exploring this today. Because, whether you're actively looking to escape the relentless grind of city living, or maybe you just want to optimize your own work-from-home tech setup.
Or even if you're just trying to figure out how to make a tangible impact in your local neighborhood.
Yeah, exactly. This deep dive is just packed with these surprising aha moments for you. We're going to walk through how an incredibly hyper-specific search for a river view naturally evolved into a grassroots empowerment project.
The evolution in these source notes is just remarkable. I mean, by the end of our discussion, you'll see how the metrics shift completely. We start off measuring value in thousands of rupees, and we end up measuring social impact across generations.
Yeah, it's wild. So I want to start with the physical location, like the where and the how much, before we get into the really complex logistics of running a tech hub from a village.
Makes sense. The economics have to work first.
Right. And the economics here are, quite frankly, staggering. Yeah. The notes describe Arikirevula as functioning essentially as a rural extension of Kovar town, which is only about 3 kilometers away.
So you are dealing with prices set by the Gram Panchayat.
Exactly. And for our listener, if you don't know, Gram Panchayat is basically a hyper-local grassroots village council system in India. So you get these highly localized rural prices, but municipal town accessibility is like just a 5 to 10 minute scooter right away.
What's fascinating here is that it's a classic geographic sweet spot. You are just outside the boundary of municipal taxation and urban inflation.
But close enough to leverage the town's infrastructure when you actually need it.
Precisely.
And the real estate finds that anchors these notes, it's just incredible. They map out renting a first-floor, 2-bedroom portion of a heritage house. It has a really spacious hall, an attached toilet, and this prominent east-facing slanted roof.
And the ground floor is largely empty, right?
Yeah, the notes say it's reserved almost purely for the owner's occasional guests. So you essentially get the privacy of an independent house. And the price, 3,000 rupees a month.
Which is what, about $35?
Yeah, 35 to 40 US dollars. And it sits just 150 to 180 meters from the Godavari River banks.
With totally unobstructed sunrise and sunset views.
Right. It's like finding a rent-controlled apartment in Manhattan, but instead of staring at a brick wall, your front yard is a pristine, massive river. And you're paying the monthly subscription cost of a software tool.
The economics are impressive, but what really stands out to me in the architectural notes is how the house itself is a massive cost-saving mechanism.
Wait, really? How so?
Well, specifically, it's that east-facing slanted roof you mentioned. In the Godavari region, the climate basically dictates your quality of life. And a slanted roof is thermodynamically brilliant for this specific geography.
Okay, I wouldn't have guessed that. Break that down for me.
Sure. So first, from a structural standpoint, when the heavy monsoon rains arrive, a slanted design sheds water instantly. That prevents pooling and, long-term structural decay.
Makes sense. Nobody wants a leaky roof.
Exactly. But more importantly, because this roof faces east, it catches that gentle, ambient, early morning light. Then, as the day progresses and the sun moves, that same roof completely shields the main living space from the brutal, harsh western sun in the afternoon.
Oh, wow. So you aren't living inside an absolute brick oven by 4 in the afternoon.
That's the underlying mechanism, yes. The natural cooling provided by that roof design, combined with the thick heritage brick walls and the uninterrupted river breeze you get from being elevated on the first floor, it drastically reduces thermal retention.
So you don't have to blast the AC all day.
Exactly. Your reliance on heavy, continuous air conditioning drops significantly because the house is actively cooling itself. That keeps your monthly electricity bills minimal.
Which is huge.
It is a crucial, often overlooked component of making geo-arbitrage actually work. If you save on base rent but spend a fortune keeping the place habitable, you haven't really arbitraged anything.
That makes a lot of sense. The environment is basically doing the heavy lifting for you.
Yeah.
And the sources also point out a detail about the water situation. The house gets clean, punch-out supplied water.
Which is vital near a river.
Right. I didn't realize why that was a big deal until I read further. It turns out, if you just dig a bore well right next to a riverbed, the local groundwater often has a really high iron content.
Yeah, and that can ruin your appliances. Not to mention it's terrible for your hair and skin.
Exactly. So you have clean water, you've got cement concrete roads so you aren't trudging through knee-deep mud during the monsoon, and a front row seat to the river. It sounds incredibly idyllic.
It does sound like a vacation spot.
But here's where I want to pivot a bit. Because if you are a remote worker, an idyllic sunset doesn't pay the bills.
No, it certainly does not. You need absolute reliability to do actual work.
Exactly. You need hardcore infrastructure. So how do you actually engineer a modern digital sanctuary inside a classic heritage structure without, destroying the building?
Well, this transition from a historic setting to a high-tech workspace requires incredibly deliberate planning. You are inserting a modern, sensitive digital lifestyle into a rural electrical grid that was frankly never designed for it.
And the blueprint for solving this in the notes is fascinating. Let's look at the power redundancy first. They detail this split dual power backup strategy.
Right, which is quite clever.
Because my first thought would be, okay, just wire a massive battery to the whole house, right? But instead, the plan uses one digital inverter functioning as a direct, seamless UPS.
An uninterruptible power supply.
Yeah. And they use it solely and exclusively for the sensitive computer hardware. It basically just sits right between the wall socket and the PC workstation. No complicated internal split wiring required.
And then you hire a local electrician to set up a standard, completely separate inverter just for the basic lights and ceiling fans.
Right. Why is splitting it up like that so important?
It's a beautifully isolated system, and here's why that matters. The switching time on a standard home inverter is often just a few milliseconds too slow for enterprise computing.
So the computer would just crash anyway.
Exactly. When the power drops, the lights might flicker, and a standard PC will instantly shut down, wiping out whatever you were working on. By keeping the computing hardware on its own dedicated digital inverter, which has a near-zero transfer time, you ensure stability.
So even during a storm, you're safe.
Right. If a power spike hits, or if the main grid resets during a violent monsoon storm, your data work experiences zero interruption. The ceiling fans might stutter for a second as their separate inverter kicks in, but your workstation remains perfectly stable.
And it avoids the massive expense of ripping open heritage walls to rewire the entire property.
Exactly. It's an elegant workaround.
But speaking of rewiring, they do mention you have to strictly verify the wiring for the air conditioning. Like, the notes emphasize visually checking that the walls have heavy-duty 16-amp or 25-amp 3-pin sockets.
Yes, that is a critical safety check.
You actually have to look inside the distribution box for thick, 4-square-millimeter copper wire that runs to a dedicated 20-amp or 32-amp miniature circuit breaker. I'm guessing this is because an older heritage home might look fine on the surface, but the guts of the walls can't handle a modern appliance.
That is the exact mechanism at play, yeah. An air conditioning compressor pulls a massive sustained electrical load. Older wiring, or thinner gauge wire designed just for incandescent bulbs, creates electrical resistance when forced to carry that much current.
And resistance means heat.
Exactly. Resistance creates heat. If you just plug a modern AC into a standard older switch, those thin wires will literally melt inside the walls, which is a massive fire hazard.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Verifying that heavy-gauge copper wiring ensures the physical lines can handle the load safely, without overheating or tripping your carefully isolated backup systems that we just talked about.
Okay, so the power grid is secured, isolated, and safe from fire. Now for the internet. The strategy outlined is a dual network architecture.
Which is mandatory for remote work, really.
Right. The primary broad pipe connection is Airtel AirFiber, which is a fixed wireless access system. The notes say to place it right by that eastern window. And then the fallback is a Geo 5G mobile hotspot, specifically isolated to handle secure UPI transactions.
And just for anyone outside of India listening, UPI is the instant mobile payment system that basically serves as the digital backbone of daily commerce there.
Yeah, you basically need it to buy anything. But wait, I have to push back on this whole wireless strategy for a second. We just talked about how great those thick classic heritage brick walls are for keeping the intense heat out.
Yes, they are excellent thermal insulators.
But aren't they absolute kryptonite for 5G signals? Like, isn't trying to push a 5G signal through thick brick essentially like trying to shine a flashlight through dense fog? How are you getting enterprise-grade wireless internet inside an old village house?
That is the perfect question, and it really comes down to the hyper-specific geographic placement of this house. The sources actually pull up the exact plus code for the property.
E plus code, what's that?
A plus code is essentially a digital address derived from latitude and longitude coordinates. If you drop that specific pin, it's 2pxe plus MRQAnon, a digital map, you'll see exactly why the brick walls aren't a problem.
Oh, I'm looking at the notes now. It's because of the elevation.
Yes, because this house is situated on the first floor, and because the surrounding terrain is entirely flat agricultural land and open river, there are no high-rise buildings or concrete jungles to block the signal.
Okay, that makes sense.
So the router, which is placed right by that eastern window, has an absolutely unobstructed, pristine line of sight directly to the local telecom towers in Kovar.
Ah, I see. So the signal doesn't even have to fight through the fog of the brick walls. It just sails right in through the open glass window.
Exactly. The radio frequency doesn't experience the urban degradation, the bouncing or the interference you'd normally see in a densely packed city.
Right, where it's bouncing off 10 other skyscrapers.
Right. This perfectly illustrates how rural infrastructure is really leapfrogging traditional wired limitations. 10 years ago, moving to a village meant waiting months for a telecom company to drag physical copper or fiber cables to your door.
If they would even agree to do it at all.
Exactly. Now, with fixed wireless access and 5G towers beaming high-capacity signals across flat, rural landscapes, a village house can actually achieve lower latency and higher speeds than a crowded city apartment block that is struggling with network congestion.
That is a massive paradigm shift. You're getting better 5G simply because there are fewer buildings in the way. Okay, so the physical tech is totally bulletproof. But we have to transition here because, well, you can isolate your power grid and you can lock down your 5G, but you can't isolate yourself from the humans around you.
No, you cannot, and you shouldn't want to.
Right. Moving to a village isn't just about plugging in your router. It's about dropping into an established social fabric as an outsider. And the notes get really interesting here regarding security.
Yes, the contrast with urban living is stark.
Because in a major city, if you want peace of mind, you look for a building with a keypad, a doorman, maybe some cameras. But according to these sources, in a Godavari village, your absolute best security system is simply the family you rent from.
Yes, the sources call it the Munsif factor.
The Munsif factor. I love that.
The blueprint notes that this specific house is owned by the village Munsif. Historically, a munsif was the traditional village magistrate or headman. They were responsible for revenue collection and generally keeping the peace.
Right, an important local figure.
Yes. Now, while modern legal administration has obviously shifted to other elected and appointed roles over the years, the family of a munsif still retains massive generational social capital.
So it's sort of like renting an apartment from the mayor's family in a small town?
Precisely. By renting the first floor of their home, the renter receives an instant, unofficial vetted status. You are protected by association.
Oh, that's incredibly smart.
The neighbors know the house, they respect the family lineage, and because the ground floor is used for the munsif's occasional guests, prominent local elders and officials might be dropping by regularly anyway.
So nobody is going to mess with that house.
Exactly. It creates a natural, implicit layer of security and respect that no electronic alarm system could ever replicate.
And beyond the social anchor, there are logistical anchors that I found really clever in the notes. They mention the house is located right next to the local Bank of Baroda, which has a 247 ATM, and the local post office.
Which is huge for remote workers.
Yeah, for someone running a digital business, that solves a massive friction point. You don't have to give couriers complicated directions involving like a banyan tree and a painted rock. You just say, Munsif House next to the post office, and you are virtually unmissable for any delivery coming out of Rajamahendravarm or Kovur.
Logistically, that proximity to the Bank of Baroda is a hidden gem for another more technical reason, too.
Oh, why is that?
Well, public sector banks require highly stable power to run their local servers and security systems. Being on the same immediate physical block as a bank often means your local neighborhood is wired into a prioritized commercial electrical grid loop.
Wait, really? I had no idea.
Yes. So when the broader village experiences routine load shedding, that specific block is often the last to lose power and the first to get it back.
That is such a brilliant under-the-radar detail to look for when you're scouting locations.
It really is.
Now, to fully understand the ecosystem, the sources also dig into the political landscape. And I want to be very clear to our listener right now. We are entirely neutral here. We're not taking sides. We are just looking at the facts on the ground, as presented in the notes, to understand how the local world operates.
Right. It's just about understanding the context of the region.
Exactly. So the macro environment is the Kovur Assembly constituency. It's designated as a scheduled caste reserved seat, which is an electoral district reserved for historically marginalized communities to ensure they have guaranteed political representation.
Important context, definitely.
The notes state it's currently held by TDP MLA Mupidi Venkatswara Rao, while the YSRCP commands a very strong grassroots vote bank in these agrarian pockets.
Right. And what the blueprint so smartly points out is the difference between macro and micro politics for a resident living there. Well, state-level politics, driven by the MLA and these larger parties, they dictate the big regional infrastructure. They are the ones securing funding for the massive highway expansions or, the road-cum-rail bridges over the Godavari.
Right. But that doesn't necessarily impact your Tuesday morning, does it?
Exactly. Your daily lived experience as a resident is governed almost entirely by the Gram Panchayat.
The local village council.
Yes. The local sarpanch, the elected head of the village, and the ward members, they are the ones who actually control the immediate water supply lines. They manage the street lighting. They oversee the maintenance of those cement concrete roads right outside your door.
So they're the ones you actually need to know.
Precisely. Understanding that micropower structure and knowing who to talk to if a pipe bursts is far more vital for a local resident than engaging in, state-level political debates.
And on a purely social level, the notes advise preparing for the classic gossip network of a Godavari village, which honestly isn't presented as malicious in the sources. It's just the reality of an agrarian society where everyone knows everyone.
It's just human nature in a tight-knit community.
Yeah. As a new arrival setting up a digital workstation in a prominent house, you are going to be the subject of friendly curiosity. But the strategy outlined is just to be visible. Once people see you quietly going about your routine, you eventually just blend into the peaceful backdrop.
It's an ecosystem built on proximity and visibility. It is the exact opposite of the isolated, closed-door anonymity of urban apartment living, which actually perfectly sets up the final and I think most profound part of this entire blueprint.
I completely agree, because up to this point, we've really just been talking about extraction. Like, what does the village offer the remote worker?
Right, you get cheap rent, you get beautiful views, you get priority power.
And built-in Social Security. But then the source material completely flips the dynamic. It asks, what can the remote worker offer the village?
And this is where the concept of geo-arbitrage evolves into something truly reciprocal. The blueprint identifies a massive, completely untapped demographic in these rural and suburban areas. Highly educated women.
Right. We are talking about women holding advanced degrees, BSc, BCom, BTech, or BEd, who basically stepped away from formal, traditional careers to raise their children and manage their households.
Exactly. Let's explore the friction there for a second, because the talent and the intellect are clearly there in the village, but the traditional structure of work is what excludes them.
Yeah, a rigid 9-to-5 job that requires commuting an hour into a city tech park just doesn't function when you are managing a family and a household in a village.
The barrier is the commute and the rigidity. It's not the capability. So the plan outlined in the notes is to leverage the space.
The rented house.
Yes. Take that massive east-facing hall with the slanted roof, the one with the beautiful river views, and transform it into a built-in local classroom.
Oh, that's amazing.
The goal is to teach these local housewives digital skills. Things like virtual assistants, digital marketing, and how to manage cloud storage ecosystems like Google Drive.
And this is where that Munsif House factor becomes a superpower all over again, isn't it?
It really is.
Because if you were an outsider who just rented some random isolated shed on the edge of town, local families might be, well, highly hesitant to send people there.
Naturally.
But because you are hosting this inside the Munsuf's property, right next to the bank and the post office, it is an incredibly respectable, culturally safe landmark. Husbands, fathers, and in-laws feel completely comfortable with the women of their family going there to learn.
Trust is the absolute highest currency in a village ecosystem. By leveraging the trust inherently built into that physical location, the remote worker can introduce what the sources call a micro-work model.
A micro-work model. I like that phrasing.
It's highly effective. You aren't trying to force these women into an 8-hour remote shift. You are teaching them how to handle flexible, project-based tasks that can be completed in, say, 1 to 2 hour pockets of time.
Like maybe while the kids are at school, or early in the morning before the house wakes up.
Exactly.
It's essentially reversing the brain drain. Instead of local talent feeling like they have to abandon their village to find opportunity at a crowded city, you are building a micro-tech hub right inside a village living room.
It's incredibly empowering.
And you don't even need a complicated marketing budget. The notes just suggest putting a printed notice on the wall at the post office and the bank next door. The village word-of-mouth network, that gossip network we mentioned earlier, will organically do the rest.
It's a very elegant solution, and it raises an important question about the fundamental nature of economic access today.
How so?
Well, teaching these women a digital-first mindset accomplishes far more than just providing them with an independent stream of income. It proves, in real time, that the global digital economy is not geographically restricted to places like Silicon Valley or Bengaluru.
Right. It can be accessed, mastered, and leveraged from a gram panchayat on the banks of the Godavari.
Yes. The economic ripple effect of empowering a mother with an independent, flexible digital income, it structurally transforms the financial trajectory of her entire family.
It really changes everything about how we view remote work. I mean, you start off looking for a 3,000 rupee Riverside rental just to save some money, and you end up with a blueprint for dual network enterprise tech redundancy, backed up by the village headman.
Which is impressive enough on its own.
Right. But then it ultimately doubles as a grassroots digital empowerment project for local women.
It synthesizes the absolute best of modern technology with the deepest strengths of traditional community structures.
It really does. So what does this all mean for you? You know, whether you're actively planning a move or just trying to optimize your current home office or thinking about the impact you have on your own neighborhood. The core lesson here is intentionality. It's about looking past the obvious limitations and seeing the potential in the spaces and the people right around you.
It definitely leaves us with a lingering thought to consider. If one remote worker moving to a heritage home in Arikirevula can use a 5G connection and a strategically slanted roof to spark a local digital economy for educated housewives,
Yeah.
what happens to the global workforce when thousands of remote workers begin migrating to these rural areas? Are the world's next great tech innovation hubs going to be built not in towering glass skyscrapers, but on the quiet, breezy banks of rivers like the Godavari?
Imagine that. The next Silicon Valley, born in a room with a slanted roof, looking out over the water, far away from the brick walls and the city noise. Until next time, keep diving deep.